Hello, it's Scott, and it is Rita. This is Cosmic Dialogue. I think 52, 53. We're not sure. I'm sure there'll be a number to it. Um, so we want to talk about scaring people away. So, what came up for you with this, Rita?
I'm just, there was a little bit of whiny part for me about, I'm tired of scaring people. But I, I've always considered myself a very safe person to be with, totally unthreatening. And yet I have something that just pushes buttons that people, yeah, something in me intimidates or frightens people a lot of times. And so I'm just getting to where I'm accepting that, I guess. What about you?
Yeah, well, actually, ironically, like this, I sort of like did a video about this not too long ago, just me, but the whole idea of like just being um yeah, people like being scared away or just not getting you, or you perceive that they're not getting you. You perceive that they're scared away, or you perceive that you know you put something out there to the world that's like a little radical or whatever, and you'll get a few little accolades of likes or whatever on social media, and then you say something that's completely acceptable. Like I could put weight loss photos all day and I get hundreds of applause. But as soon as Scott turns this corner and talks about meditation or intuition or radical concepts like serving and a love economy, it's like people are very quiet.
Mm-hmm.
So that part scares them. So, but I actually thought I came to the realization that people don't know your worth so much because they may not understand their own worth. So,
Mm-hmm. Yep.
so
I've only recently understood that the rejection or the criticism often is just that well, in the book that we're going to be promoting eventually, or not promoting, but just offering, it's a rejection of something inside of them, which is usually fear. Cover over the fear by rejecting what's coming, what's being offered to you.
yeah, and often it pushes a button where perhaps they have to like think of their own story. So, or break out of their own story, or a story right now that they're in, and it's something, I don't know, there's so much like taboo in our society that sometimes like people are like, I don't want to go down that road. So it's a little, but yeah, that's at the same time, yeah, I consider myself a peaceful, gentle,
Yeah.
approachable person. Yet I don't know, is it my insecurity? Is it the world that sort of shapes other people? Is it the separation that we have? It's one of those things I wrestle with.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, definitely, I do.
So, yeah, you want the people that you love to like pour out their heart on you, and so and when they don't, it's like oh, you know, so it's and at the same time, you should just live your life the way you want to without caring what other folks think. So, so it's one of those things where it's like, am I caring too much about other people's opinions, or is there something deeper that's really going on? That is like, that if we could grab a hold of that and really work with that as in our circles, like our friends, our neighbors, or could something kind of flip a switch and change the paradigm where of course people would go to a solar practitioner for whatever they want first. of course people will go to a farmer's market first, you know,
Mm.
or go to a holistic practitioner first before they decide to go to their pharmacist or their, you know, medical practitioner. It's you wonder if there's some sort of magic key to turn.
Or prepare yourself. Or they would actually feel their feelings before they go to the doctor. There's the scary part.
Yeah.
Oh, everybody just clicked this video off.
They did. That's it.
Say whatever you want now.
Yeah, we can talk as much as we want freely because now everyone has turned the video off. That's amazing. Yeah, feeling the feelings, feeling the fear, feeling vulnerable, feeling imperfect.
And then admitting it. Oof.
Admitting that, you know, we have a small temporal footprint in this earth life. And here I go getting a little out there. So.
Well, okay, I'm with you.
Yeah, yeah. So I wonder, maybe just briefly, I want to kind of like, maybe I want to just do a little bit of future cosmic dialogue into that future. So
Bring the shit out of people.
yeah, yeah. So, and what it could be like if people weren't afraid, maybe. So maybe we can paint that picture. Ooh, ooh.
I didn't even get to that next step yet.
Oh, fun. So, well, let me go a little briefly. This will be a short one. How long in the future do we want? 200 years in the future? 500 years in the future after 5 collapses of empire.
Right.
So it's
maybe that'll wake them up.
All right. Well, let's just be optimistic and say 100 years from now. Let's do that. Okay. So it's 2118. And yes, that would mean I would be 149 years old, or speaking from the spirit world. I hope I'd probably be speaking a lot slower if I were 149 years old. But it's 2118. And people are just amazing. After we kind of had a huge political collapse in the last 100 years, after a lot of our systems kind of crumbled and we learned to rebuild something that was even better because we had that example of the goods and the bads and everything would come along. After that, this past 100 years, we feel like we are a reborn people. And we've learned that, you know, energy is for everyone. We can create free, low-cost energy. This new economy is different. We have more people who are invested in ourselves as whole people rather than this mechanical, mechanized, we're just cells or organs or things to track out of. We have a fairly new idea of health and longevity. And the old did come along. You know, the old came along and Western medicine was still here, and the concepts of that are still here. And all the technologists knew how to build things, but we learned how to do these things in a more integrated way. We learned from our mistakes of the past that, no, we can't deny people health. We can't deny people happiness. We have to invest as a nation in people's health and well-being. And we had to realize neighbors had to feel that for their neighbors first. We were the ones who had to, you know, make sure that if we were meeting our needs, we also could make sure that our neighbors were meeting our needs. We all had to change our story. We all had to change our story And it was the most beautiful thing. After about 10 years, when everybody was used to this new thing, it became the most beautiful thing of, no, we've already had this empire come through and tell us that we are portioned out, and we're not going to do that anymore. We've had that in the past. Enough of us who were old enough said, enough of that. We're going to create a free society that is also loving, that is also compassionate, and part of that is actually fostering that everyone has access to food, water, healthcare, housing, and that poverty and poverty of the heart are no more. So we still have poverty. That's always going to be with us. There are still some things we're still working out. But it's a lot different than this poverty of the soul that we started feeling. It was almost like we're now a new tourist attraction in the world. Like, come see this new America where people welcome tourists, where people are hospitable, where people reach out, where people love new ideas, because new ideas were what created this new way of being. So there are more fearless practitioners. Colleges are overflowing because they're free. And we had to do something with all those college buildings, when the economy collapsed 100 years ago. And we found a new way of doing things. And we realized that people were so fearful because we separated people so much. And it took a few folks who influenced another few folks who influenced thousands of folks that we could really thrive in a new way of being. And that also included an integration of science, spirit. It included an integration of happiness with our employment. We separated that healthcare thing. We knew that, like, if companies had the, if you had to like find a job because of healthcare, we were never going to progress. So I think I've got a visitor. So it's my roommate.
Hello.
Okay. So, little pause there.
All right.
So, but yeah, so that's what happened.
Okay. Yeah. So it's after going through the difficulties, like most things, it's so much better once we just faced what we were creating, what was being created, regardless of our intention as a society. Because it was being driven by fear. And so this whole thing back in 100 years ago, when you and I were just sort of feeling a little separated, well, very separated from most systems, a little lonely in our ways of looking at the world, and feeling sad that we tended to scare them away, and whatever their stories about why they were scared away. And so what had started unfolding 100 years ago was that people were finally feeling, as we usually have to get to, or used to have to get to, a desperation where, well, what have I got to lose? I'm just going to feel how afraid I actually am. Because as the universe operates, it just kept putting it up right in our faces. And you and I were already doing that. So we didn't have to get quite the smackdown that most people did, because we had been sensitive enough to the patterns and difficulties that we had already been through, and noticed that, okay, if I just feel what I'm actually feeling here, rather than telling myself a story or doing what society tells me I need to do to get out of this discomfort that I know is there, if I feel it authentically, then I can move to a more peaceful place. And that's what started happening on a much more grand scale once society got their own smackdown and fell apart by not with full cooperation of, okay, it's time for us to fall apart so we can rebuild now. No, it had to be put upon us as a society. And so it was easy to teach after that. You know, did you see what happened? We didn't have to fall apart as a nation, but because of everything we were doing to cover over our addictions and our fears and neediness and projections at other places and people, the universe just kept applying more and more pressure to make each of us individually and then as a collective feel what we were doing and the result of what we were doing. And so that has led us to this much better place of all the things that you laid out, and people just contributing, ready to contribute, because we're living more in our true gifts and our passions. There's no paycheck anymore to motivate us. We're all contributing as a whole. We contribute to the whole, our individual gifts, so that it all runs smoothly.
And I think too, what we realize now is that our separation back then, back when we were around and having this conundrum 100 years ago, before we came to the spirit world, and when our separation back then, we now view as, because we saw how that worked out, we view it as a gift because we got to go through that first. Because once things, well, I'll just say things started collapsing for people, we really became separate. We really found, I mean, there wasn't a separation of ideology, there was a separation of I am separate from the story that I've constructed, and now what do I need to become? And we already felt that. As much as we resisted it then, we already felt that. And so who did people come to first? Scott and Rita got phone calls or letters, you know, and we were the ones that people came to us saying, I remember when you talked about, you know, changing a story, and I know that this is happening everywhere, but what do I do? So, and it wasn't just because we wanted to say, I told you so. It was because we developed that first. And so, and people recognize that, and we actually knew what that meant to serve. When we developed these things first, maybe we're the first wave to help usher the people through so that people could actually be companioned, because they resisted being companioned so much in that old paradigm, that old world. They resisted it because to them that was weak. And now they realize, wow, I can actually be companioned, and then I can companion someone else. And so this is an energy that keeps going on and on. So yeah, Scott and Rita changed their story way back then, and then that helped me change mine in the midst of a period where I really needed to, where everyone needed to, we all needed to, because you know, and wow, the story now, no one can even think to go back. No one can experience, we sense the resistance right away. We're like, no, we cannot go back to that.
Yeah. It was unimaginable at the time that it could ever work this well. And I remember when I did this one painting that was just this fiery circle. And I even resisted it after I was done. I was ready to scrape it off. And you told me, no, don't do it. So I had to take a look at what about it was irritating me. Like I wanted it. It drew me, but I also wanted to just get rid of it. And so if I was going to learn from it, I knew I had to just submit to it. And what I learned was that, yeah, you're going to scare people, and that's what you're here to do. So that particular circle has become, well, I titled it, after I sat with it, I titled it "Prepared to be Undone." And that became the mantra of that wave of everybody changing. And this circle now is like a recognizable thing. And whenever we need to be reminded of the old ways, well, would you like to go through this again? And no, that it's like a visual. It goes right in and reminds people that no, I would much rather just feel the discomfort of my own resistance for a little while. And now here it is 100 years later, and it's just like, oh, right, I felt that resistance. That's what it's about. I can release that, and let's get on with being loving. Wow. Instead of projecting it out at somebody and making them responsible for how I'm feeling, or rejecting them completely and making it their fault that I feel uncomfortable. All the nonsense we used to do, that's just out the window. And yeah, let's get on with being loving. How's that? That's spot on.
One really fun example that I can think of right now is that it's now a very common household item to have a massage table in your home. I mean, and that's something that is incredible that I never would have thought of. Like, just like a blender was, or a large screen television. We all have massage tables in our home because children learn about energy. Children learn the value of touch, and people in their families know the skill. It was something that we all learned to do, and so it's, we have children who young adults now who say, "Oh, I'm 20 years old and I've gotten a massage every week since I was a baby because my mother knew how, and we had a massage table in the house, and we've." We didn't have to necessarily go to the expert because we got to learn this. This was like a public domain thing. It was released. So many other things like, support groups and things like that had to be sponsored by things were released, and they were set free. And, our neighbors knew how to deal with addiction, or if they didn't know, they had somebody down the street who had their own support group. It was that kind of thing because we learned how to do that, and we kept that. We kept that beauty of community public domain health, wellness, and healing. And it also saved us all because we got to know each other. We didn't have to separate ourselves to do all that.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
One of the indicators that we noticed really early was that our pets started just living longer. And that was just a realization that they were absorbing less garbage from us. And they were healthier and more, less neurotic than what a lot of pets were at the time. Even as the society collapsed, it was just such a relief to our pets that we were actually feeling our stuff. And they were just, tails were wagging and cats were playing. And that was really a noticeable indicator that, oh, look at the effect that we have on the environment around us and the beings around us, and how much of a burden we have been. My poor cats. Oh no, I don't want to do that anymore.
Well, we got to stay home with them. We got to stay home with them. And then when things were rebuilt, we realized we didn't have to build skyscrapers in large cities to employ people. When everything was rebuilt and, new grids, new technology structures, there were old, like everyone still had those fiber optic cables underneath them. We just had to reconnect and do all those things the same way. And our pets thought the world has just upgraded because now they all stay home with us. and we play and we have neighbors and we have, everyone is together. So in that fact, like our pets thrive because we didn't have to leave them for 8 hours a day to jump into a polluting car to go to a job and leave them all alone. Right. So, or our children or our spouse or communities. So we didn't have to leave them alone. And so work is something different. We all have awesome, wonderful work. We don't have to leave our home to do it.
Right. Yeah. And we got to notice the vastness of our individual personalities. Who knew that there are people who just really are fascinated by collecting garbage and doing whatever needs to be done with it so that we're not overrun by our own garbage, that is their passion. Who knew that all those jobs that we thought were menial, somebody just really thrives in that. And each need is fulfilled by the very nature of how we've been created. We have that much variety within our human population to just have everything addressed to make society run smoothly.
Yeah, people are like likening this to the old stories of Atlantis collapsing. And it's like, wow, did we finally figure something out? Or for a time at least. I mean, we all know that this is all temporary anyway. That's a new shift. We know that, our existence here is temporary. We are on the earth temporarily. We know we've had that tested. But this time around, we didn't have to fall. We didn't have to become a myth. We could learn from those lessons and build a better world.
And we can feel when the upgrades are coming and we just go with it instead of resisting it.
Yeah. So there are still people who are fearful, but they're fewer, much fewer. And what we were afraid of became our greatest gift.
Mm-hmm. There it is right there.
Yeah, I wouldn't go back. Neither would Junebug. So.
Okay.
All right. Thank you, Rita.
Thank you.
All right.